Hello. Welcome to the module on early Christian writings, what would have been called 50 years ago the Apostolic Fathers. One of the few statements you can make about the earliest Christians without being contradicted is that they loved writing. They have left us, unlike any other emerging Christian group in the Roman Empire at that time, a vast legacy of writings. The earliest writing that we know of is Paul's first letter to the Thessalonians. A lovely little text that shows us just how different the early Paul is to the Paul we all think we know when we read the letter to the Romans. And over the next 50 years, Christians would produce a vast array of writings. The Gospels, Mark, Matthew, Luke, John, all the other Pauline letters, and that would continue onwards. Some stage in that first 50 years, the Didache was produced. At the end of it, the community in Rome wrote a letter to the community in Corinth, the letter that we call 1 Clement, as if it were written by a single person sitting down at his desk. And that's probably around the year 100. So before the year 100, we have an array of writings, some of whom we know very well because they are utterly familiar as the New Testament scriptures in the Canonical collection, but also other writings that can equally throw light on those earliest Christians that are hardly known at all. The Didache, the letter known as 1 Clement. And then if we push into the 2nd century, we still have some writings that became part of the New Testament canon, the pastoral epistles probably being the best example. But we also have other writings, and they show us the variety and diversity of the early churches. So for instance, we've got writings such as the letters of Ignatius of Antioch, a bishop travelling to Rome, giving his view on what an ideal church would be like. We've got accounts of martyrdoms, we've got letters and homilies. If you were taking this course 100 years ago, you would have taken these documents as if they were ways of finding the earliest evidence for this or that. Can you find this doctrine that early? Can you find that practice this early? What I want you to do is, instead of trying to find the earliest evidence or engage in sort of ecclesial apologetics, to see these writings as coming from the same sort of communities that produced the documents we call the New Testament, and which, as a body, show us the range and diversity of early Christianity in the Greco-Roman world. That doesn't mean we see all of the Christianities that were around at that time. We see nothing of emerging African Christianity. We see nothing of Jewish Christianity, except insofar as we can glimpse it through the Didache, though that's a document which is itself in Greek, not Aramaic or Syriac, and which is certainly, even if it's a window on Jewish Christianity, is also a window on the churches of the Greco-Roman world. We see one urban church's concern with the problems of another urban church in the first letter of Clement. We see the emerging sense that there is a pastoral hierarchy in Ignatius of Antioch. And we see the different ways that Christians preached and thought in the other documents. Please don't try to see it as proof texts, and be careful of the danger of clumping them all together. It's always very easy to see similarities. They knew and felt their own similarity and solidarity. That is why these documents have survived. They survived because they were copied and shared from place to place and sent round from one community to another. Rather, I want you to read them, noting just how different the different Christianities are in the different churches, how they are answering different problems and producing different theologies. Theologies that are not only different to one another and from those we are familiar with in the New Testament collection, but very different from the later emerging theologies that will become standardized as early Catholicism. You can look on this module in three ways. First of all, you can look on it in the classic church history mode. This is the earliest communities apart from the New Testament. And as such, it gives you glimpses into churches in a way that we are not accustomed to looking at churches from the New Testament collection. Secondly, you can see it as the origins of Christian theology, seeing the earliest ways that Christians set about the task of making sense their belief about God as revealed to them in Jesus, and a host of problems, whether that comes from their Jewish background or their urban situation or the fact that they're facing persecution. Or thirdly, and I think this is the best way to see the module, as a way of expanding the picture that you have from the canonical collection and letting the canonical and the non-canonical collection interface with one another and enrich one another, and all told give you a better grasp on the earliest evidence that has been transmitted about Christianity. Good luck with the module.